Hey, what's up, guys? Just me today. Just me. Chris Halleck is flying back from South Florida, where he covered the NFL annual meeting for us all week. And he's leaving me alone with you guys. Or, as Rorschach said in Watchmen famously, you're in here with me. Actually, he didn't do the maniacal laugh, but you get the idea. We're going to talk about the culmination, really, of the NFL annual meeting from the Steelers' perspective. And what I mean when I say that, it's that very, very plainly, the people who run the operation see themselves, the Pittsburgh Steelers, as being a Super Bowl contender, because there's no other way to explain the moves that they've made, and specifically the pursuit of Aaron Rodgers. There's only one reason, one plausible, intelligent reason to go and get yourself a 42-year-old quarterback with the history that Rodgers has. I mean that in a good way, 4-time MVP and all that stuff. And that's if you feel that the rest of your roster, the rest of it, with Rodgers, can win it all. There's nothing else to gain from having Rodgers in the fold. In fact, there's stuff, as I've been saying now for weeks, that gets set back. So what we're looking for here, more than anything else from you, is, input in that regard. But, also if you've got questions and stuff like that, we can do some of that. My feeling here in general, as it relates to this football team, I don't think I'm exactly going out on a limb here, is no. Okay? No, certainly not yet. And it would require one whale of a draft to change my mind on this, meaning you would have to have guys who are basically kids, who are plug and play, who can just walk right in out of college and say, hey, here we are. Here we are. We're ready to perform right now. We're ready to produce, and we're ready to do that at a level higher than the people we just replaced. For example, running back position, perfect spot to start, because at running back, you're looking at Jaylen Warren getting his chance. You're looking at Kenny Gaineswell coming in and being a guy who I guess kind of supports him. He's a kick returner, but he's also done a fair amount of work in a standard offense. And then you're looking at the draft pick. Can the running game be better? Regardless of what you thought of Najee Harris overall, I'm being literal here. Better in 2025 than it was in 2024. Can it? Yeah. Can the offensive line be better? Sure. Of course it can. Will it? I don't know. Because there isn't any sort of assurance that Broderick Jones can be your guy at left tackle. There just isn't. That's why I've already seen a couple of comments come up here that are saying, Brod is, get somebody in to replace Brod, get somebody in to back up Brod to take his job. There was even a suggestion earlier to go right ahead and use yet another first-round pick on a tackle. That is not happening, nor should it. It's not going to step forward significantly, not until you know about Brod. We can do this across all of these various positions. And then we can also do what Shaka Steele is suggesting here, which is to take a nose guard in the first round, which is what all the hype is around that position in the draft. Okay, great. That's a future-based move. It really is. I keep pounding this issue here, but defensive line is not a need. It's a want. A need is quarterback. Okay. A need. Well, I mean, and let's get to your questions here. Okay. You get the idea. I don't think this football team is a Super Bowl contender. I don't feel like I'm, breaking some big ground on this, but the people who run the team do feel that it is. So when we come back, we're going to take your questions here. You know how to put them in. You know the rules and all that other stuff. So we'll do that right when we come back.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Welcome back again. If you joined us a little late, Chris Halleck's not going to be on the program today. He's flying back from South Florida after covering the NFL annual meeting down in Palm Beach. That means whether or not this show is any good is up to you. You have to ask really, really good questions. Stuff that, normally doesn't come up. For example, Steel Scorpio, really good one, says, should the Steelers go after another free agent running back to free up the third round for developmental quarterback or best available at other positions? J.K. Dobbins, when healthy, could be nice. Yeah, Dobbins, when healthy, could be nice. I think there's a must in that category. Okay, I've mentioned the two guys that are already in the fold. I think you have to have another one in addition to the draft pick just to fill out the room and just to maximize, by the way, as Danny Smith no doubt would be yelling in the background if he heard this, to make sure you've got enough guys on special teams to handle the stuff that he needs. I would welcome the competition. I would welcome giving someone like that who's maybe getting a little bit up there in running back years, give them a chance to come in and show themselves, give them a chance to force the rookie to perform at a certain level. And on top of all that, make sure you've got enough blocking in there to take care of your 42-year-old quarterback. Come on, you knew I was going there. You knew I was going there. Joshua Dobbs says there will be no value left at quarterback in round one. If you mean at the 21st pick, you hear that every year. The funny thing that never gets brought up, I shouldn't say never, but rarely, is draft happens. Everybody assesses the draft like within minutes. They don't even wait till day two. Round one gets its own grades. How did so-and-so do? Well, I give them a C-. Based on what? Nobody's played yet. And then what gets forgotten over time is that if you had all of these same players available in the same class, you've probably seen the redraft games that some people do. What would it look like? What would a redraft look like? It wouldn't look anything like what actually transpired that day. So I could sit here and rattle off 100 different quarterbacks who were taken after first rounds, after second rounds, after fifth rounds, after the draft. Okay. And I would win the argument that the best thing that you have to do is to A, scout really well, B, make sure that scouting includes the intangibles that player brings. How much are they going to improve? How hard are they going to work? How badly do they want it? How smart are they to be able to absorb it to make that next step? And then the last thing is the quarterback that fits your own system, your own personnel. Do you have that in play as well? This is where the Brock Purdy example comes in. Purdy had all of those traits, and they were specific to what the 49ers had, whether he knew it or not. Meaning from a scheme standpoint, from a brain standpoint, because the San Francisco coaching staff is obviously one of the more advanced in the league, and also from the want-to standpoint. So where you take them, and all the good quarterbacks are gone after number 3 overall or number 4 overall. It's not a great class for quarterbacks, but you don't just flat out rule out that there's not going to be anything there. Out scout everybody, work a little harder, go get your analytics people involved, get smart. Gene Smith says, DK, I'm grabbing Grant, Harmon, or Williams in the first round. That being said, do you think, as I do, that the Steelers will trade for a second rounder? I don't have to think it. Omar Khan said it. I don't know if you missed that or not, Gene, this week. He made it pretty clear that the Steelers want to regain their pick in the second round that they, of course, had to give up in the DK Metcalf trade. I think part of that might have to do with having all the comp picks coming the following year, and that you have an easier time. Well, they can't trade those picks because they're not theirs yet. They haven't even been assigned yet. But they can look at, let's say, next year's and say, we'll give up a fifth and a third or whatever else to move up into the second. You can do that kind of stuff knowing that you've got another fifth and a third or whatever next year. Denny says, Ben stood out on tape, meaning, of course, Ben Roethlisberger. He was a no-doubter. When you take a guy just because, that's when you get Kenny Pickett. You can say that really about that entire class, though. Remember that the conversation at the time, Denny, wasn't just Pickett. It was Pickett and Malik Willis. The Steelers appeared to show an intensive interest in Willis. They will do that. Sometimes it's real. Sometimes it's not so much interest as it is, let's really, really, really find out about this kid and be sure if we pass him up, then that's how it's going to be. Ben, yes, he stood out. I think there was a general feel around here that when Ben was taken, he was going to work out. I don't think anybody, maybe except Ben himself, would have thought it would have worked out the way that it did. Juan comes in. Haven't heard from you in a while, Juan. Says, greetings from Colombia. Then he puts after that, South America, in case we didn't know where Colombia was. Dude, the Steelers haven't had a real quarterback plan since Ben's final years. Having said that, we'd need both Aaron Rodgers and a rookie and a young prospect for the future. You just left Mason right out of the list there, Juan. Yeah, that's right. Where's Colombia? My daughter actually went there. What was that, 2 years ago? She went to Colombia? Yeah, just on a vacation or whatever. Really liked it, by the way. And the coffee got rave reviews, I should say. You left Mason off your list. I think that should disqualify your question, but I see what you're saying here. What you would want, I think, is as many options as possible, as many quarterbacks you can throw against the wall as possible to see one of them that sticks. J-Bo says that Rodgers won't survive long in the AFC North, so I feel like it's a waste. You might be right, Jay. You might be onto something. The AFC North has a reputation. It tends to be deserved. Sometimes it's a little bit overblown. Let's remember that, Lamar Jackson makes it through most of the schedule, most of the time. Other than a major injury that Joe Burrow had early in his career, he makes it through. Ben has survived the wars, and I could list a bunch of other names in this category. But when you're talking about Rodgers, the main thing that comes to mind here isn't that, he's 42 and he's going to get creamed. He might if the offensive line doesn't do its job, but he just gets rid of the ball so fast. He takes care of himself. And if you want to think about a comparable in your head for what that looks like, in case you don't, have a whole lot of recent Rodgers games or video of it in your head, just remember what Ben was like at the very end, his final season. He was getting rid of the ball almost as quickly as it was snapped. He knew what was in front of him. He knew he had one chance of getting through that season, not in one piece, but alive. That's how bad that line was. And that's how bad it was at everything. It was bad at blocking, pass blocking, bad at protection, bad at run blocking, so that he couldn't even turn around and hand the ball off. It was just all bad. And all he did was this: 1, 2, 1, 2. Like, he didn't even hang on to the thing. And there's actually now a stat and a metric for it. Ben led the NFL in fastest release time. You betcha he did. Mr. Woods and I are on the same page here. It says, think Ben in his last year. That's exactly it. Brian says, ignoring the age issues, with which I agree, are there any on or off the field issues that you might foresee or foreguess involving Rodgers and, let's say, Arthur Smith, or Rodgers in the Steelers organization? Or do you think it'd be fairly harmonious? I'll tell you, I don't get the sense that there were real problems with him and the Jets. I have heard and seen and read occasionally someone after the fact will say, well, he wasn't the greatest this or that teammate, but you see 5 times as many saying that he was, meaning that he was a good teammate. I think if there's anything that would rub anybody the wrong way, it's probably more likely to be the public than it is the team. There's going to be an understanding, however, within the team that we're not expecting to be just another stop on your tour. We're not expecting to be just your final stamp in the passport before you go to Canton. We are the Steelers. These are our Super Bowl trophies. This is TJ Watt. This is Cam Hayward. And I got at least a smidgen of that I picked up on in Art Rooney's comments yesterday in Palm Beach, where he said that when he was asked, what he and Rodgers talked about in the time that Rodgers spent on the South Side here last week, he said, we talked about Pittsburgh. Now, he then proceeded to joke about how Rodgers feels like he knows a lot about Pittsburgh because Mike McCarthy, his old coach in Green Bay, of course, was from Greenfield and would talk about Greenfield all the time, and everybody was making a joke out of it, and great. What was more telling to me was that Art brought that up, that Art brought the Steelers up. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of that. Not that the Steelers need to sell who they are, but they need to make clear to him that they value who they are, and they will want him to be a Steeler. They will want him to be a true Steeler to whatever extent that's even possible. Garrett Slingerland says, but that's all we would be, referring to a final stop. We'd be part of his sideshow before he retires. Even if he wins a Super Bowl, he's still a Packer who stole one from us first. Well, yeah, that's what you're getting when you're getting the old guy. I mean, you could say the same thing about Russ when he was here. Russell Wilson, when people look back at Russ's career, what uniform is he going to be wearing? He's going to be a Seahawk. That's the team he won it all with. That's where he spent most of his career. Now, what Russ tried to do, boy, did he try and try and try, was to assimilate as if he was just a born and bred Yinzer waiting in the line at Penn Mac for the cheese lady. Okay, and he was ready to work on the accent and everything. Russ went, as he does with most things, really over the top. But I didn't see it actually bother anybody. Did you? I didn't see anybody say, hey, Russ is trying too hard to become a Pittsburgher. No. Russ is trying to say too many things about how great the Steelers are and whatever. But we have, not to get super psychological here on you or whatever, I'm born and bred in this city. And we have something of an inferiority complex about ourselves, especially when it comes to people either going or coming. When they've gone, we get really resentful about it. And it's just who we are. That's part of the whole big exodus from the 80s and 90s. When they come, all we want to hear is, did you get up to Mount Washington? Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you make it down to Point State Park? That's the tallest fountain in the world, running water and everything. And you start saying all this stuff, and everybody turns into a tour guide here. It's who we are. Okay, we have a really, really great place, and even we don't seem to recognize that ourselves until we're trying to sell it to somebody else, if that makes sense. I think that's going to be a lot of what happens with Rodgers. Cal comes in and says he insisted, meaning Rodgers did, on bringing his coordinator before signing with the Jets. And then when it went bad, they ended up firing the whole staff. I'll tell you what, that ain't happening here. Okay. Remember one thing about the Arthur Smith offense. It's one thing for Arthur to have a certain way that he wants to play the game. And it's one thing for Arthur to show up here from Atlanta and to bring that here last year. It's another thing for the team to begin executing player acquisitions based on that. because now you're digging in the trench, so to speak. The trench is actually the one thing they need to figure out. But you're saying this is who we are and this is who we're going to be. So, yes, of course, Smith and the Steelers are going to have to do things to work with the 42-year-old quarterback because he's not about to change his stripes, nor should he. I wouldn't ask him to. I think that'd be dumb and counterproductive. But there's a way to do that within an offense that includes multiple tight ends. It's not like Rodgers hasn't thrown to a tight end in his life. That'll include multiple wide receiver weapons. That'll include a running game. Rodgers has overseen some very, very good running games, not in New Jersey, of course, but in Green Bay. And so he can do these things. He can be that guy. I don't know to what extent, though, you'll see him butting heads. I do think that it's going to be a one-year contract, and I do think it's a different setting than what was happening with the Jets, where a lot of the stuff was, like you said, changing the entire staff. That's not something that you do in the middle of the season or whatever. If it's a one-year deal, he's going to have to make it work, and to an extent, they're going to have to make it work. Steelers Love says, will the NFL or ESPN try to hype up quarterback prospects not worthy of star status to ensure good viewership? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why anybody would worry what any network would have to say about hyping up. What matters is who the Steelers value. What matters is who they're going to take. And if you think they're watching, television to figure that stuff out, you don't know these guys at all. They are like this tunnel vision with this stuff. They're not sitting there watching NFL programming all day. Best answer I can give you. Daniel Pike says, does bringing in Aaron Rodgers inhibit Arthur Smith's plans or does it benefit him? That's tough because that's going to be contingent on how symbiotic they are. Okay. Like I can tell you, and I have for weeks now, and there's a reason for it, that Mason Rudolph would fit the Smith offense. And at the moment that Rudolph would become the quarterback, whether that's right off the bat, meaning Rodgers doesn't sign here or Rodgers gets hurt, you would see an immediate chemistry connection between quarterback and coordinator that you wouldn't have to worry about. Why? Because Smith's background was such that the best offense he ever ran, the one in Nashville, had Ryan Tannehill at the helm, holding the pocket, finding his receivers, taking deeper shots, executing the running game. I'm not saying that Mason is what Tannehill was. Tannehill really turned himself seemingly out of nowhere into a pretty good quarterback, in large part because of the Smith offense. And of course, in large part because he had, the prime version of Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and everything, right? But I do think that you could see Arthur have to work harder to adjust to Rodgers and by comparison, not have to adjust really at all when it comes to Rudolph. Crazy Pollock. Oh, God, dude. Was it just me or did Rodgers look every bit of 41 when he did the run back and then the pass to DK Metcalf in the throwing session? I didn't study the throwing session. I'm sorry. I know that made it viral and whatever. I'm not going to watch a video of a guy throwing a football to another guy on a playground, basically. If you want to look at what Rodgers looks like at 41, there's 17 games of film. Okay, 17 full games of film. And the Jets won 5 games. Now, the Jets stink, but the Jets won 5 games. So Frank has probably the best question that's going to be asked today. We're going to only take a couple more today. That's what happens if Rodgers loses his first couple of games. How short will his leash be before Mike Tomlin will open his eyes? Picture this now. Think about what Frank's asking right now, because I can promise you this right down here, what Frank's got. See this? I'm pointing down there to you, Frank. That's going to be topics A, B, C, D, and E through the month of September. If the Steelers don't win their first couple of games or go 1-2, and then they're headed over to Ireland, and you're getting into that factor, depending on who it is that they're playing over there, and you're fearing another start like 2013 where they were 0-3, went to London and lost to another 0-3 team in the Vikings, and it seemed like the end of the world. What'll happen in this scenario is that all of the complaining and everything else will be about Tomlin. And that's how it tends to go anyway when he loses. But there will be a perception, and I believe that it'll be a perception with cause, that it was Tomlin's call to bring this guy in. Just like it was Tomlin's call to put Russell Wilson in after week 6, and Justin Fields had gone 4-2 with the offense progressing. That attention, that harsh spotlight is going to be on the head coach. Will it change his mind? Frank, you know who we're dealing with here, right? Can you imagine how long that would take? Can you imagine what would have to happen? Look at what it took to get Matt Canada fired in season. Think about that. Regardless of who you believe did the hiring or the firing or whatever else, my reporting said that it was Tomlin that fired Canada. So let's take a couple more here. Aaron will get one more game than Duck Hodges got, says Denny. That's pretty good. Tomlin and Rodgers' fates will be tied together. Neither has had the success like they had in 2010. Ironic? No. Frank wants me to throw him some kind of signal here that Tomlin's seat is getting hot. No, it's not. It's just not. Look at what Art Rooney said he wanted in January, and listen to Rooney yesterday. Okay? He is completely, I don't even know if the word is subservient or intimidated by or worshiping or whatever it is, but he ultimately just falls in line with whatever it is that Tomlin wants. So to imagine the scenario in which Tomlin would feel his seat getting hot, I can't even wrap my head around it. I can't. Gene Smith says Jagoff is a term of endearment. Is it? Is it? I'm going to guess you're not still in Pittsburgh, Gene. I'm going to guess you're not still here, because when I hear it here, it comes from the soul, and there's nothing at all positive about it. It's the Jagoff who makes the Pittsburgh left in front of you at the four-way intersection. Okay, that's a Jagoff. It's the individual who, and this is the real definition, by the way, of Jagoff. Here, Gene says he's here, so he has no excuse for this, unless he's just around nice people all the time. It's the person who's just never serious about anything, who just can't help but being snarky all the time. That, to me, is, if you really had to Websterize that term, that's where I would go first. It would be the one where you just go, really? I mean, can you take, like, who would even be at a funeral and would be just saying something snotty or snarky, That's a Jagoff. That's like a total Jagoff. And by the way, that's the intonation. Did you feel that? Did you feel it there coming? The intonation is, that's a Jagoff. You say it like that and you give it that look, Jagoff here. Last one for today. Whoa, dude. Hang on a second. $100. You will get your question answered on this program. You might get a whole half hour to yourself for a Benji there. 828 Style comes in and says, NC here, as a Duke fan. I don't know if you mean the Duquesne Dukes or if you mean Duke or if you mean basketball, but I'll continue. It got to a point where I was ready to see Coach K. Okay, so you are talking about Duke basketball. Coach Mike Krzyzewski. This is Pittsburgh here, man. We don't talk a lot of basketball. I was ready to see Coach K go, although he was great. He was stuck in his old ways while a lot of teams were passing him on. He won a lot, but in the end, he couldn't win the ship anymore. Mike Tomlin gives me the same vibes. He will win, but not a Super Bowl. I feel like, first of all, thank you. That's an insane gesture. I feel like a lot of the game has passed Tomlin by his own choice. I don't feel this is one of those like he got old and whatever. Remember how young he was when he took the job. He's not old now. He's razor sharp. What has happened to him over the years is that he's become hardened in his ways, and he's become more invested in showing everyone that he's right and that he was right and that he's been right all along, and that the next time he's right, he can stand there in front of you and say, you know what I'm about to say, right? That's why I'm highly compensated. He gets defensive, incredibly defensive. And what ends up really hurting the Steelers out of that are things that are so basic, like having a clock management coach. There's only 17 regular season games in a year. Stop and just think about that. How much would it cost a $1 billion operation like the Steelers to hire one of these aces? You get one of them. This doesn't even have to be one of those hires like, the baseball teams going to get these Ivy Leaguers for advanced analytics. You don't need to do anything like that. You just get somebody who's really good at telling time and knowing football situations and being able to say, hey, coach, now. And not having the coach question it, or worse, look around at the scoreboard to make sure he does this, to make sure that what he's hearing is correct. You could do the same thing with instant replay, but he doesn't, because he knows that the moment he does, the people like me are going to ask questions after the fact. Hey, Mike, how much has it helped you to add that clock management coach? The one we've been pestering you about for years. He doesn't want to deal with that. He doesn't want to have to explain to people that he'd been screwing it up all this time. That's self-fulfilled. That's the part of the game that's passed him by. But again, he has chosen it. When we come back, we're going to take care of some business here on the program. I believe the boss has an update on the number of memberships that we have here. Maxwell says, fascinating convo. Thanks, Max. That's pretty cool. 1785 is the number. Our goal, as you can see up there on the side, is to have 3,000 YouTube memberships. And I want to be clear on a couple of things. When we're talking about memberships here, YouTube has a lot of different names for a lot of different ways to connect to your favorite programming. I'm not sure why they do that, but they do. There's subscribing to a channel, which doesn't cost anything, and it's nice, it's welcome, and it has to happen before a membership, but it doesn't support the program or anything. The membership, you come in, it's 99 cents a month. You get perks for that. You'll get to be part of, once the real football stuff comes around, members only shows that we do, members only live chats that we do for our community here. The big thing from our end, what we want, is to build up the biggest and best and most politics-free, trash-free, troll-free, Steelers-based community on the network, on YouTube. That's what our objective is here. So the more of you that we have, obviously, the better that process goes. The way to do it is to go to dkps.net/join. And you have to actually type that. Don't be trying to click your screen or whatever. Put it into a URL, dkps.net/join. I want to go over some of the contributions that we got here today, in addition to welcoming our new members. Steve Yeager, Dwayne Phelan came in earlier today. Rhino, I saw you came in. 828 is listing himself or herself as a new member, and you want to talk about a way to make an entrance. You walk in here with a Benji, and we are all ears. That's pretty impressive. And Yeah, Max says some nice things too. Good stuff, great show, and everything else. Tomorrow we will. I'm not knocking it. That sounded like it just means that I really appreciate it, and I can't say it often enough. Is what I mean to say. Frank advises everybody to hit the like button before you go, and I will let you know that tomorrow is Thursday, and Chris will be back, and we will do a show that kind of goes over stuff that he picked up in a general sense, maybe stuff that wasn't reported, in a straight manner, but a sense that he got from some of the many people that he talked to down there, including casual conversations and so forth. It's the reason we go, that we travel everywhere as DK Pittsburgh Sports to these events. We don't just want to get the transcripts and share them with you. We want to actually learn some stuff. So I'm expecting a really good show tomorrow, and I hope you'll be here with us, and thanks for being here today on the Solo Show.